Hey Google, stop. Hey everybody, Wes Ranto here. Welcome to my office. Yes, I'm going to do a little bit of a summary now that we're through 8 weeks. We're working through week 9 here. Hey, I'm Wes. For those of you that haven't met me yet face to face, or run into me or know me from somewhere else, just wanted to introduce myself. Sorry about the messy hair. A little bit about my office. Clearly, I love the MCU, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. For those of you that can make it out, that is a bad movie poster back there on the far wall that we made ourselves of horrific movies we watched, which are horrific good, horrific bad. We'll talk more about that because you're going to have to watch a bad movie soon. And then back here is like 150 of the greatest images from science fiction movies or fantasy movies over the last 3 decades. So it's kind of a cool picture. Okay, so what I want to talk about, I just want to talk about where the course is. I want to talk about some comments about what's going on and what people said, stuff like that. So this is an important one. Okay, so first of all, week 1, we got the intro, we got that stuff in. Very soon, people introduced themselves. Some people had a lot of knowledge in science fiction, some very little, some brand new, some loved the genre, some didn't, or weren't sure if they did, were trying to get into it or starting to get into it. So welcome to all. I hope you're enjoying the course so far. I tried to make it fun. It is a course, if you do the work, I expect you to get a pretty darn good mark. And it's one where hopefully you learn something and have some fun as we do it as well. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, now, we then got into some short, after a few discussions, we got into some short stories. So 3 short stories. The reason I did that, obviously, later after the next week when I did the biographies for them, you got to see one was H.G. Wells, the star. He's like, the godfather of science fiction. He's one of the reasons science fiction is where it is today. Was recognized as this great writer. Then you had Sultana's Dream, which was translated only in the last 25, 30 years into English, written by a female Indian writer, dealing with sort of the oppression that she was dealing with at home. And then you had Triumph of the Mechanic, which was written by a gentleman who is a very pro-Nazi propaganda type guy, and so 3 total, and again, it was converted in English just in the last 20, 30 years. So you got to see this huge diversity in writing. There were a couple of reasons I thought it mattered. One is that, especially in North America, we often think everything in science fiction and comic books and everything stems from here, like the MCU, stuff like that. So I just thought it was important to see that the whole world encompassed this, for one, and 2 is that the writing styles. One of the fun parts for me is every single semester, H.G. Wells never wins as the style of writing most people like the most, even though they were all written long, long ago. So it's just really interesting to me, is that has the writing approach changed where it was more interesting then, or is it partly just that, some of the other writings were arguably better? Like, for example, usually Triumph of the Mechanic wins, and I believe it did again this semester when I looked. It sort of took number 1. It was actually a really close second between H.G. Wells and Sultana's Dream. And so it's really fun for me because it's important people get to see that, because then afterwards, does it matter where they came from? And, does that affect your decision making, right? And depending on who you are and what you've been involved in, what you've experienced in your life, it could affect it or maybe not. But the idea is to really expand your horizon. That's what I wanted to do there. I hope it did. I hope it maybe gave you a chance to consider more short stories. So the Big Little Book of Science Fiction, which is a collection of hundreds of short stories, great book. It's where I got those from. It's got hundreds and hundreds of more stories. I just picked those because it was easy to make a solid diversity across a similar time period of writing. So anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Okay. Then we also had our first movie review. So you either got Johnny Mnemonic, Back to the Future, Ex Machina or Ex Machina, depending how you say it, 2001 Space Odyssey, Can't remember if there's a fifth off my top of my head, but I said Back to the Future. Yeah, okay. Anyway, so the idea here was to get you to watch the movie. Sorry, people were trying to interrupt me. I had to stop them. To watch the movie and actually go and find, whether A, did you like it? B, what predictions did they get right and wrong? And this is really funny to me. So what people defined as right and wrong was interesting even in itself. So let me just pick one. Start with Back to the Future. Hoverboards do exist today. And a lot of you put it as a not because it doesn't exist like it did in the movie. But the concept of hoverboards do exist, all right? And there's actually competitions and stuff like that. It's just more advanced than what they had created there. But the truth is hoverboards, so I didn't give it wrong. You still got full marks if you said it didn't. But the point is it was a matter of how exact you expected them to be was quite interesting to me, okay? So in Back to the Future, they got a bunch of stuff right and a bunch of stuff wrong, but it also depends how you interpret it. I picked that one because it's one where it was interesting on interpretation. On the other side, Johnny Mnemonic got a ton wrong, but like, for example, human augmentation, it got right. Not exactly how it would be implemented, but the concept of human augmentation, they got right. They got video phones right. They got video chatting correct, fundamentally, all right? Because keep in mind, that didn't exist at all at the time of those movies. So you had to step back and say, okay, what existed then? So what did they predict? And what was right. So, but on the other side, yes, that whole VR side of it, maybe it was a little, definitely off, not a little, definitely off. And the laser whip thing, definitely off, of course. And we don't use dolphins as the big brainiacs to hack through the web type idea. But it did also get some interesting points about the vanity of humans and stuff like that, as well as the difficulties and strife certain areas are dealing with, and how the rich got richer and the poor got poorer. That part has fundamentally come true. So it depends how you looked at it and I was quite open to interpretations, and I think people worked really hard on it and did a great job. But I wanted to open your minds, and I think most of you did. Okay, so thank you. I appreciate it, and your mark would reflect that. Word counts matter. Please hold to the word counts. Give me good content. There's a lot there. You've just watched an hour and a half to 2 hour movie. You can give me the words, so I'm not worried about that. Try not to skimp out and do a good job because it's actually good learning for you. Okay. Week 6 was the Star Wars and the impact. Almost everyone agreed that Star Wars has had a huge impact on society. I personally agree. I'm a huge Star Wars fan though, so of course I'm a bit biased, but it is, no question, it's been super impactful. And then now you've also done your Black Mirror assignment. I love Black Mirror. I love the concept of the show. Each one's its own story. I love that idea. I picked that one specifically because of the impact of social media that we're presently dealing with. There's so many studies out there supporting the direction of this that, people are defining their image and who they are based on social media. It's dangerous. And I watch my kids on YouTube Shorts and how impactful that can be and its impact. So these things are unbelievably are occurring. And the truth is, China in certain areas even tried a rating system to affect how they viewed the amount of money, how much someone was going to be charged for insurance. So there is this truth in this rating system. We do have it. We don't have it extreme quite like that, but I love that episode, for example. Actually, I think a lot of the episodes, you should watch the show as a whole. But when they actually popped the computer lens out of the eye type idea, it was the first time she really sort of saw the dust falling and stuff, and it was like, it would just open that new perspective. And then when her and the guy in the other one, they were sort of losing it on each other, it was great because it was just that first time of true freedom that they actually had, where they weren't governed by society. And it was just kind of a really well done story. So I think everyone did really well there. So, and then week 8, science fiction versus fantasy. For me, this is a huge one. Sci-fi and fantasy for me are very blended. I love both. I've got favorites in both genres. And to be honest, the genres are blurring together. Where's the line between Thor and Iron Man? Thor theoretically probably falls under fantasy, and Iron Man falls under sci-fi. But then, for example, nowadays, they're in the process of building an invisibility cloak, which most people would have argued 10 years ago was fantasy from Harry Potter. But if we're able to make it into science fiction and turn it more like Predator, then is it really science fiction or fantasy, or is it sci-fi? And keep in mind, if you go far enough back, all the things we're discussing now, if you go back 300, 400, 500 years, all of this was fantasy. This was all just lofty impossibilities. Now, a lot of you will argue, well, what about aliens? Well, here's my thing. There are limitless quantity of planets out there. I can't believe we're the only one that have any life on it. It makes no sense to me mathematically. I'm just, as a math person, just doesn't make sense. There's got to be others out there. So the truth is, if some were formed earlier, maybe there are different types of species with intelligence that have interest in traveling. I don't know. But the point is, I want to believe it's possible. You may think I'm crazy. That's fine. But the point is that if we did find those, then all of a sudden all these fantasy movies that we're talking about, like Warcraft or anything else, now it becomes somewhat of an actual science fiction versus fantasy, right? So just keep that in mind. All right, moving forward right now, I believe you're doing a movie pre-1970. Please don't focus your comments about, oh, the visual effects suck. Of course they do in today's terms. That is not the purpose of the assignment. Don't waste your time doing that. Try to enjoy the quality of the movie and put it in the quality of the aspect of the time period, okay? It's not going to measure up to today's action because they didn't have the ability to, all right? Is it a good movie? Tell me why. Don't focus on the special effects. That's a waste of time. It's a waste of your time and a waste of my time. Okay, don't do that. Then we also we're going to be doing a bad movie. That will be coming up. I'm going to warn you. You cannot pick a good movie that you did not like. That does not make a bad movie. I'm going to give you a list of a real hunk of junks. Now, keep in mind, with bad movies, the reason we're doing this is it does help diversify, and you'd be surprised how many of you are going to enjoy some of these bad movies. Because as soon as you get rid of the special effects or focusing on it being an amazing story, and you go in with the attitude it's going to be a bad movie, it can be a lot of fun. And I'm going to introduce you to some, and I'm going to give you a list, and I highly recommend you try one of them, because as part of a bad movie night group, it is so much fun to watch a horrible movie that you all love. All right. For example, there's one that makes a joke about all the Marvel characters and stuff. And for example, instead of Wolverine, it's Beaverine. There's a movie called Zombievers. Velocipaster, a pastor who turns into a velociraptor with a $25,000 budget. Tons of fun, but you'll enjoy it. Trust me, that's a fun one. It's so bad, and it can be so bad it gets good. Right? Okay, and then we've got more going on, then we'll have the final assignment and all that. But I just want to give a quick overall wrap. Thank you for everyone's contributions. I love hearing people's opinion on stuff and where you're going and how it's working. So thank you. Keep it up. Let's crush the rest of the semester. And please don't hesitate to reach out if you want to talk about something. I love this field, obviously. Anyway, thank you. Western Rancho signing off.